Hi, gorgeous loves. Welcome back to the YouTube. I want to thank you so much for being here, for being you, to showing up every moment, and for living the life that you wish, and for taking steps to step deeper into that power. Today's topic is the ego, which I'm sure the ego is very happy about. What I want to speak upon is kind of the tactics of the ego, what the ego does, and how we can move through this state of awareness. Understanding and becoming aware of your ego is extremely, extremely powerful because the ego is an energy sucker. It absorbs energy and uses it against us. That's what's so insane, is the ego is a master manipulator that is an essential part of human experience. Everyone has an ego. What's so beautiful about consciousness and about our awareness is that we can become aware of this aspect within. And we integrate our ego because it actually holds deep knowledge. It holds deep understanding of things, but it kind of packages it in a way that inflates itself, if that makes sense. The ego will do whatever it can to keep itself powerful because it is limited. Our ego just has a very limited understanding, a limited viewpoint, and that's why it's so eager and desperate to attack us when we're unconscious. That's really the only way that the ego can gain power, is through unconsciousness. And when we've been living in an unconscious state for a long time, it's very scary when you first come face to face with your ego, because you recognize how much power it's had in your life, how controlling of decisions it's been. And your ego is just trying to expand its power. You know, it's not really trying to get anywhere. It's not trying to ascend, because that's not possible for the ego. And it's actually such a beautiful thing, because once we start becoming aware of our ego, we recognize how powerful we are as an independent being. And I mentioned that the ego is like a master manipulator, and why I said that is it's not a malice kind of intentional. The ego is simply running its system. It's how its system is designed. And as the consciousness, we have to be aware of this is just its design. And it is designed to protect us in its own way. And that's why, as an individual, you get to explore what your ego does to protect you, and you can recognize where the energy doesn't need to be used any longer. And it radiates energies of shame, anxiety, guilt, and it embodies these because it wants to protect you against them. The ego is just doing its job. Yet when we go through life unconsciously, we put a lot of weight on the ego's back. And the ego isn't capable of carrying that much weight, carrying that much energy, but it loves it at the same time. It doesn't want to give its power up. It's kind of like the ego got in a high power position that it is completely unqualified and incapable of holding. And now, as the consciousness, we have to slowly take the energy away. We can't just be like, you're done, give me that back, like, get out. We have to be very slow, very conscious, very loving. It is the voice it is the manipulative voice in your head. And what's important with when dealing with the ego is you cannot feed it. It's like a beast. Like if you try to fight with your ego or any of that, it's just going to take the energy that you give it, manipulate, and continue the cycle. Let's see where I want to go now with this. It doesn't really come to a point, in my understanding, of full defeat of the ego. It's just full awareness of it. You're fully aware of how it works. And therefore, there's nothing to fear because you already know its next move. You know what it's trying to do. You know what it's trying to get. And your ego goes between superiority and inferiority. It's the key of separation in life. It only knows separation. And that's why our ego is important, because it helps us to establish some sense of independence, individuality, and enter into this plane with confidence that we have a mission that is only our mission. And that's very important, because if you don't understand that, you get lost trying to find your mission in someone else, trying to recreate what someone else is doing with their life. So that's kind of where the ego comes from. But what is a big key, and what I have loved so much, is that whenever I experience something negative, something shameful, something unright in my psyche, in my mind, whether it's a thought, an impulse, an idea, I know it's the ego. And that's all it takes, is knowing that, okay, that's the ego. Just being aware of it in action. And it is a process. Everything in your life is a process. It doesn't have an ending point. It doesn't have a finish line that we've been so conditioned to believe that, you know, we finish these tasks and it's done. That's not how this kind of transformation and awareness works. It's a constant kind of thing. So that's why enjoy every moment, no matter where you're at with identifying the ego. Just enjoy where you are and know that you're doing what's right. And sometimes we do fall victim to the ego. Not we give our energy away to the ego. That's okay. If afterwards you're able to identify that, you're just gaining knowledge. You're gaining experience. You're gaining knowing. It's kind of like your ego doesn't understand the full picture. It wants you to win, but it wants you to win in the way that it thinks you need to win, the way it thinks you need to move forward. And it's very easy to fall into the wraps of the ego because we kind of have adversity to not knowing. And once you start getting comfortable with not knowing, that's another way that you can take your power back from the ego. It's okay, we don't have to know everything. But that's a foreign language to the ego. That's another thing to understand. Always having to know or have an answer is sometimes your ego. What's so beautiful is only you can figure out how your ego works within. Because I could sit here and tell you all these ways that my ego has worked against me, but that might not be the case for you. And that's why I just want to share this from a kind of enlightening standpoint, where you take what resonates, you take what brings you clarity, and then you go from there. That's what's so beautiful about resources and sharing, is that it's not a step-by-step. There's no blueprint for these things. It's just kind of like trusting your intuition and seeing what flows and taking that information with you as you move through this journey. I will give one example of what my ego does. If there is any kind of problem in my life, it takes the problem and just uses it against me. It tries to trick me into thinking my whole value lies in the solution to that problem. And I know that that's not the case. But a couple years ago, I didn't know that. So that was causing me to take action in a way that was under pressure, unfulfilling, and not aligned with the true identity within. Because our value cannot be defined in the outside world. It can only be reflected out here. There's so much that our ego can't understand, but as consciousness, we understand and we trust it. And we honor our body and our vessel and everything that comes along with it, but we don't let it have power over us. That's the key, is knowing that you can take your power back. And it's a journey, it's not a destination. I hope so deeply that something here resonated and that you know that everyone has an ego, okay? And you can work through it. You can create the safety to move your energy from that place into space of endless love and endless possibility. It's possible. Thank you so much for watching, and I am sending you so much love, light, and high vibration.